This week is just an average week in my kitchen. You guys know I'm a holistic nutritionist, I'm a mom of 4, and I love to cook real and approachable food for my family. I'm always in the kitchen, and this week I'm whipping up some new things for our weekly menu. So join me in the kitchen, be a fly on the wall while I show you a few different meals we ate this week. During the winter, when tomatoes and peppers aren't in season, I still love to cook with canned versions of that to give us some nice fresh flavors. So today I'm making a green chili egg bake or egg casserole, and I'm starting out with some canned diced tomatoes, and I'm putting that in the bottom of my greased baking dishes. And I love to grease my baking dishes with just a little bit of butter. Now I'm adding in some diced green chilies, and I try to drain out most of the liquid, that way it's not too wet. And then I'm topping that with cheese. I'm using just a raw, sharp white cheddar cheese, but any sharp cheese or even Monterey Jack cheese or something like that would be just fine. You just want to repeat this process a few times and kind of layer up the toppings almost like a breakfast lasagna. In my house, breakfast is usually more of a rushed thing because the kids wake up and they're ready to eat. So I usually have to have something that's already kind of ready to go, which is why I love egg bakes and quiches or anything of that sort, because I could make it ahead of time. I can make it the day before or the night before, and then it's ready to go whenever I need it, no stress. I try to share as many written recipes as I can over on my website, healthyelizabeth.com, but some of my recipes don't make it to the website. I'm just cooking, so if I have links, I'll leave them down below for you in the description box. I'm constantly updating things over there, so if you haven't seen it posted yet, just check back, and usually it'll be up there. Now, to make my egg filling, or like the custard that's going to hold all those yummy toppings together, I'm just cracking in about 12 large eggs. So this is going to be really filling and full of protein, and it also makes a lot. So if you have a big family or you like to do meal prep or batch cooking, then this is a great recipe. So I'm just going to add 12 eggs, and then I'm going to top that off with about half a cup of heavy cream. And then I'm just seasoning that with a little bit of salt and pepper and whisk it all up. And then we're going to pour that over our toppings in our baking dishes. The trick here is to kind of get that egg mixture to settle in and kind of make it more dense like a casserole. So I like to take a fork and I'll just kind of poke down so that way that egg mixture can kind of seep down into those toppings, and then it helps everything solidify when we bake it. I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and I'm going to put both of those casserole dishes in there together, and we're going to let those bake for about 40 to 45 minutes. Anytime I'm in the kitchen, I almost always try to multitask and make more than one thing. So while something's baking in the oven, I'll start something else that I can keep in the fridge or marinate something. It just really helps my house to run a little bit smoother. So while that's baking in the oven, I'm going to get started on a raw carrot salad that I'm just going to have in the fridge that we could have as a side or with lunch or as a snack. It serves so many purposes and it's super healthy and easy. So I'm just taking a bunch of rainbow carrots. You can use regular carrots, and you just want to first peel them and get that outer layer of skin off. And then I'm using my vegetable peeler, and I'm starting at the thick side of the carrot, and I'm just moving my peeler down to make carrot ribbons. I always love it when fruit salads have raisins, and so I thought I'd add some raisins into this carrot salad to help balance it out and bring a little bit of sweetness to it. So I'm using about a quarter cup of raisins, and that's just going to help give it some texture and some sweetness. And then I'm going to drizzle over just a really simple raw apple cider vinaigrette, and I just do that by combining raw apple cider vinegar, avocado oil, or you could use olive oil, and then raw honey. Just do a little bit of salt and pepper, and then you have this really simple dressing. So I just drizzle that over the carrots, and then this is optional, but today I had an apple just sitting on the counter, and I decided to throw that in too, just because it sounded really good. So I went ahead and covered that with some plastic wrap, and then put that in the fridge to chill and let all those flavors kind of develop. My favorite little trick anytime I'm baking with cheese is the last 5 minutes or so of cooking, I'll take some of the cheese that I reserved and I'll top it with it thin. That way it just melts and doesn't get super crusty and browned. Sometimes I like it when cheese is just still gooey, and so I did that here the last 5 minutes. I just popped it back in and let that cheese melt, and now we can have this for breakfast or for brunch, and it's delicious. Next, I'm getting started on a garlic roasted whole chicken, or actually 2 whole chickens this time. Whole roasted chickens are one of my favorite things to kind of batch cook at the beginning of the week. That way we can have them for different meals, and it's just kind of like prepped rotisserie chicken in your fridge, but it's a lot healthier when you make it yourself and super flavorful. So to make this really easy garlic roasted chicken, I just start out with 2 3.5 pound or so organic free range whole chickens, and I just rinse them and then I pat them dry with a paper towel. And then sometimes their little wings have little spiky things coming out of them, or little, I'm not sure what they are exactly, but I just take scissors and I trim that off. And then I'm going to take a whole bulb of garlic. Now, this is for 2 chickens. So if you're just doing 1 chicken, you could do half a bulb of garlic, or roughly about 6 to 8 garlic cloves. And I'm just going to mince those up, not super finely. I leave them a little bit chunky because we don't want them to burn in the oven. And now to flavor the chicken and keep it really moist while it's roasting, I'm taking a few tablespoons of avocado oil, or you could use olive oil if that's what you have on hand, that'll work. And I'm just taking some salt and some pepper, a lot of salt and pepper, to really give this chicken a lot of flavor. And I'm combining that in the oil with the garlic, and it kind of makes its own garlic oil. And then I'm going to take that and rub that oil on the chicken all the way around. So top, bottom, and I'm even going to put my hand under the skin of the chicken and make sure that all of that flavored oil gets into the actual meat of the chicken itself and not just the skin. So that's going to give you a really flavorful chicken inside and out. So just rub that down, and I'm going to put this on my parchment lined baking sheet, and I have my oven preheated to 425. So I'm going to place the chickens in the oven for about 15 minutes at 425. Then I'm going to flip them over to where they're breast side up and cook them for another 15 minutes at 425. And this just helps everything to get nice and brown right from the beginning. Then I'll turn my oven temperature down and we'll cook it low and slow for a while longer. So one of these chickens will be dinner tonight, and then the other one will go in the fridge to have on hand for the week. And to go with this delicious garlicky chicken, I'm going to make some Brussels sprouts. So these are going to be just a roasted Brussels sprout, but I'm going to kind of dress it up a little bit and add some walnuts and a homemade really quick balsamic glaze. I just have some fresh whole Brussels sprouts, and I just rinsed them off a little bit and then dried them off with a towel. And now I'm going to cut the ends off, and the really big Brussels sprouts I'll quarter, but the rest of them that are just an average size, I'll just cut in half, and then I'll get those on a parchment lined baking sheet. I've preheated the oven to 400 degrees, and now I'm just drizzling my Brussels sprouts with some avocado oil. I always use that whenever I'm roasting at high temperatures, especially. And then I'll sprinkle it with salt and pepper, and I'll massage that in a little bit with my hands, but I try not to let too many of the leaves get loose because those will tend to caramelize a lot sooner than the whole Brussels sprouts will. So try to just give it a quick rub down, and then those are good to go in the oven. And I'm going to roast those first without adding our nuts or anything for about 20 minutes. And in the meantime, while those are roasting, I'm going to take about a 1/4 cup of walnuts, or maybe 1/3 of a cup of walnuts. You can use however many you like. And I'm going to chop those up and get them to where they're a nice bite size. Now, I love just a really quick glaze like this. It's just whole foods, and all I'm gonna do is take a little bit of balsamic vinegar and mix that with some honey, and that's gonna thicken it up and make it the perfect little balsamic drizzle. And you can do this with either honey or maple syrup. So if you prefer the taste of maple syrup, go ahead and use that. It's delicious with Brussels sprouts, so that's definitely an option. And you'll just pull those Brussels sprouts out of the oven after 20 minutes, and then you'll drizzle them with that homemade balsamic glaze and sprinkle them with as many walnuts as you want. I love the sweetness and the vinegar acid and all of the crunchy walnuts. This is just a delicious combination, and it's so nourishing too. You have the Brussels sprouts and the walnuts. They're so flavorful and so nutritious as a side dish for any night of the week. It's just really quick and easy, but it's so yummy. So after my chicken did its first roast at 425 for 30 minutes total, I lowered the oven temperature to 375 to continue roasting the chicken for about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the size of your chicken. So I just cook it until it reaches 165. So if you have a thermometer, you can definitely take the temperature, but it usually turns out just fine roasting it for 30 to 40 more minutes. And halfway through that 40 minutes or so, I'll just baste it with a little bit of its drippings with a spoon, just quickly over the top. And this just helps to make everything stay really moist and juicy and helps really caramelize that crust and make it like this perfect glassy crust. The next day in the morning, I got started on a pork roast. So I just have this Boston pork roast. It's from my local farmer's market. They have the best cuts of meat and they're so affordable. So if you can find one close to you, definitely check it out because it's usually more affordable than the stores, at least where I am. All I did was rub it with about 1 tablespoon of salt, and I'm just going to place this in the fridge and let it kind of work as almost a brine on the outside of this pork to give it really good flavor when we dry rub it later. We're gonna have the pork roast for dinner tonight, so to go with it, I'm going to make a cabbage and radicchio slaw because those are both in season right now, so I'm gonna pair those together. But I first wanna make a really yummy dressing for it. So I'm gonna make a creamy cilantro lime dressing, and it's not gonna be spicy or anything. It's just gonna have a lot of creaminess and a lot of tang and be really flavorful to dress the cabbage in. So first I'm just taking about half a cup of sour cream. You could also use a plain Greek yogurt, that works just the same. And I'm gonna put this in my food processor along with some lime juice and an entire bunch of cilantro. Now, if you don't like cilantro, you could also try maybe green onion and just swap it out for a different flavor. It's still gonna have the same sort of zest and brightness, so I think you could try that. But I'm going to take a couple garlic cloves now, actually about 3, and I'm going to put those in whole and then add a little bit of ground cumin, salt, and pepper. And I'm going to blend this up until it's nice and pureed. And then just to help emulsify it, I'll slowly drizzle in about a 1/4 cup of avocado oil or olive oil. I love how beautiful and green this dressing is, and I love how tangy it is, and it even has the live cultures in it from my cultured sour cream. So this is a great little thing to keep in the fridge. I'll just put it in a glass jar with a tight fitting lid, and it'll stay in the fridge for up to about 1 week. So now I'm ready to cook this pork, and it's going to cook low and slow for several hours today. So I want to get it started early, and I pulled it out of the fridge about 30 minutes ago to let it come to room temperature. That way it roasts evenly. So now I'm going to start by making my dry rub for it. And since I already added salt to it earlier, I'm not going to add as much salt as I would. So I'm going to do about half a tablespoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of mustard powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, and then to sweeten it up and make sure it has a really good crust, about 2 tablespoons of coconut sugar. And I also added in half a tablespoon of garlic powder. I like to just spread it out on some parchment paper, and then I'll take my pork roast and I'll press it in on all of the different sides. So for this style of pork, you don't want to rub it in, you want to have that crust on it. So by pressing it into the dry rub, it helps to kind of dry out that crust and really make the exterior the way we want it to be. So I'm just going to do that on all sides, sprinkle any extra seasoning I have on my parchment, and then I'm putting it into one of my smaller Dutch ovens, and I'm going to put this into my oven at 450. I'm going to start it on nice high heat for about 15 minutes, and you want to do it fat side up so that all that fat will start browning and rendering down and keeping our meat nice and moist and flavorful. And after I do that, then I'll lower my oven to 275 and let that cook for about 4 to 7 hours.
That's half of it.
Almost every week I make a cabbage salad. Normally it's just my standard cabbage salad, but this week, since I'm making a pork roast, I tried to make one that's a little more inspired by that. So I'm using a red cabbage here, and I'm thinly slicing it up. And then to add something a little bit different and to experiment with something that's in season, I decided to use radicchio along with it. Now, I've never used this before. This is actually the first time I've ever cooked with radicchio, and I really thought it was too bitter in this salad. So I added a little bit of honey to try to sweeten things up. So if you're used to bitter flavors and you don't mind bitter greens, which are so good for you, then give it a try. Just maybe add half of a radicchio head instead of an entire one, because it does have a really bitter flavor. So it's definitely not for picky eaters, I'll say that. But if it was just red cabbage, then this would be absolutely delicious, because the mixture of the shredded cabbage along with that creamy cilantro lime dressing, it's definitely excellent. So try it, and if you like radicchio, give it a shot. You want to serve this after it's been chilled. So now that it's together, I'm just going to put it in a glass storage container and put it in the fridge, and it'll be ready to go tonight for dinner. You can see just how beautiful this pork turned out. It was amazing. I'm already planning to make it again. So once it came out of the oven, I just shredded it up with some forks. It should fall apart. That's kind of the trick. So if you kind of poke a fork in it and it doesn't fall apart, just put it back into the oven and let it keep on cooking. It's really foolproof that way. So I just let this cook for a long time, shredded it up, and we had it with some of that cabbage slaw. I had a little bit of Primal Kitchen barbecue, and it was delicious, and the whole family loved it.